I never imagined my own daughter would call me useless in front of 180 people on the most important day of her life, after I secretly paid every last dollar of her wedding. Before we continue, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. We post new stories every day. Drop a like, and tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. My name is Edward Ed Walker. I'm 62, and for 35 years I built a construction company from nothing that today is worth about $2.8 million. But this story doesn't start with my business wins. It starts with a decision I made in March 2024, right after my daughter Beatrice told me she was getting married to Adrian Blake. Bea had been working in my company for 2 years. At first, I thought it was her way of getting closer after a lot of family conflict following my 2018 divorce from her mother, Paula. My daughter had always kept me at arm's length, blaming me for the divorce, even though the truth was more complicated than she could grasp at 22. When she told me about the engagement, I saw a golden chance to fix things. Adrian came from a well-off family in Dallas. His father, Richard Jenkins, owned a rival construction firm. I figured my daughter's happiness mattered more than any business rivalry. How naive I was. The problem started when Bea confessed, tears in her eyes, that Adrian's family expected a wedding that matched their social status, but they, as a young couple, didn't have the $85,000 for the ceremony they'd set their hearts on at the Ritz-Carlton in Dallas. "Dad," she told me one March afternoon, sitting in my office in Austin, "things have been hard between us, but Adrian is the love of my life. I don't want him to think I come from a family that can't give us the wedding we deserve." Something broke and healed inside me at the same time. I saw my little girl again, the one who used to run to the door when I came home from work, asking me for help with real vulnerability. Without thinking twice, I made a decision that changed everything. "Don't worry, honey, I'll take care of it," I said, squeezing her hand. Here's the part she never knew. I decided to fund the entire wedding in secret. From March through May 2024, I transferred $85,000 to Bea's account in 4 installments, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, and $25,000, always labeled as family support, so she could tell Adrian and his family she'd saved the money from working at my company. Why do it secretly? Because I knew the Jenkins pride. Richard had always looked down on my company, treating it like a minor player next to his Dallas empire. I didn't want my help to look like meddling, or worse, like I was showing off. I made each transfer myself and told Bea it was best to keep this between us to avoid family drama. She agreed happily, promising she'd pay me back someday, though in my heart I'd already decided it would be my wedding gift. Those months I threw myself into every detail. I reviewed the caterer's contracts, talked to the florist, even went with Bea to try on wedding dresses. For the first time in years, it felt like we were truly father and daughter again. I remember one afternoon in April when we chose the menu. Bea showed me options and said, "Dad, thank you for helping me with this. I know we haven't always had the best relationship, but it means a lot that you're here." Her words gave me hope. I thought we were finally finding our way back to each other. The wedding was set for June 15th, 2024. 3 weeks before, I made the final $25,000 transfer. Bea called that afternoon, thrilled. "Dad, everything's set. It's going to be perfect. Adrian's so excited and his family is impressed with how organized we are." I had no idea my world would start falling apart that very night. June 15th, 2024 dawned clear and bright in Dallas. The day we'd all been waiting for had come. I woke up at 6, nervous but excited. After months of planning, I'd finally see my daughter walk down the aisle. I put on my best suit, a navy Armani I'd bought for the occasion. As I knotted my tie, I couldn't stop smiling, picturing Bea glowing in the $8,000 dress we'd picked together at a boutique on McKinney Avenue. I arrived at the Ritz-Carlton at 4. The place was transformed into a dream. The white and gold flowers I'd helped choose decorated every corner of the main hall. All 180 guests took their seats out on the garden terrace where the ceremony would be held. I watched the Jenkins family pull up in their brand new Mercedes. Richard looked immaculate, wearing that calculated smile I knew from a few business interactions. His wife, Caroline, wore a designer gown that probably cost more than my employees' monthly paychecks. The ceremony was beautiful. Bea was stunning, and when she asked me to walk her down the aisle, my heart nearly burst. "Thank you for everything, Dad," she whispered as we walked. For a moment, I believed all my efforts had been worth it. Adrian greeted her with tears in his eyes, and I sat in the front row next to my ex-wife, Paula, who gave me a genuine smile for the first time in years. "You did good," she murmured. "Bea looks happy." The vows were emotional. Adrian promised to love and protect my daughter forever, and she spoke about building a family based on respect and honesty. Irony, as it turned out. After the ceremony, we moved inside for the reception. Dinner was exquisite. Prosciutto, salmon, roast lamb, everything exactly as planned. Guests praised every detail, from the decor to the string quartet I'd suggested. During dinner, I sat at the head table with both families. Richard was unusually cordial, considering our rivalry. "Ed," he said, lifting his glass of Dom Perignon, "this celebration is spectacular. You can feel the family's dedication." Then came the speeches. Adrian spoke first, thanking both families for their support. Then Richard took the mic and gave a polished speech about two important business families coming together in Texas. I thought the speeches were over, but Bea stood and asked for the microphone. The room went silent. Under the warm glow of the chandelier, she smiled at the crowd. "I want to thank someone very special," she began, clear and confident. "Someone who made this magical night possible." My heart raced. I thought she was finally going to acknowledge me publicly, that this would be our full reconciliation in front of everyone we loved. "I want to thank my father-in-law, Richard Jenkins," she continued, and it felt like a punch to the gut. "He paid for this wedding $85,000. Without his generosity, none of this would have been possible." The room erupted in applause. I sat frozen, feeling the blood rush to my head, but the worst was still coming. Bea looked straight at me and, with a smile I'll never forget, added, "Let's be honest. My father is useless and has never been able to provide for his family the way he should. Thank God Adrian has a successful father who knows how to take care of his own." All 180 guests turned toward me. Some gave awkward laughs, others whispered. Paula stared at me, horrified. Richard kept that calculated smile, and now I understood why he'd been so friendly over dinner. The silence stretched forever. My daughter waited for my reaction, along with everyone else. Maybe they expected me to blow up, to cause a scene. Instead, I did what no one expected, not even me. I stood up slowly, held on to the composure I'd learned across 35 years of business, smiled with the same calm I used to close tough deals, and simply nodded at my daughter. "Congratulations, Beatrice," I said, firm and steady. "May you have the life you deserve." I walked out of the ballroom without hurry, without drama, without explanations. As I left, I could hear confused murmurs behind me. I got into my Audi A6 and drove back to Austin in a strange calm. No tears, no yelling, just a cold, crystal-clear understanding of what had happened. My own daughter had humiliated me in front of 180 people, giving credit for my sacrifice to her father-in-law and calling me useless on her wedding day. Somewhere on that long night drive down I-35, a smile formed. Bea had made the biggest mistake of her life, but she didn't know it yet. I reached my place in Cedar Park close to midnight. The silence of home was a brutal contrast to the buzz of the party I'd left behind. I poured a glass of 18-year Macallan, the one I saved for special occasions, though this wasn't the one I'd imagined. I didn't sleep. Bea's words echoed in my head. My father is useless. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw her smiling face saying those words to the world. At 5 a.m., I got dressed and headed to Walker Construction. I needed to keep my hands busy. And something else bothered me. How perfectly coordinated Bea and Richard had seemed. The smooth way she'd lied about the money made me suspect this wasn't impulsive at all. I got to the office at sunrise. When I walked into Bea's area, something jumped out. Her desk, usually obsessively neat, was scattered with papers. In the rush to get ready for the wedding, she'd left documents she normally locked away. What I found chilled me. There was a handwritten notebook with confidential information about our biggest clients, names, private numbers, contract amounts, project deadlines, gold for any competitor like Richard Jenkins. But that wasn't the worst. Among the papers, I found a draft letter in Bea's unmistakable handwriting, dated May 10th, 2024. My heart pounded as I read, "Dear Mr. Jenkins, as agreed in our Tuesday meeting, I'm sending the updated information on the 3 main projects at Walker Construction. The contract with the city of Maynard ends August 30th, and as I mentioned, my father has been showing signs of decline in his management capacity. The budgeting errors on the Maple Ridge residential complex show he's no longer fit to handle projects of this size." My hands shook as I kept reading. The letter detailed our minor admin mistakes, our financial soft spots, even speculated about my growing inability to make sound decisions due to age. At the end of the draft, there was a line that took my breath away. As discussed, the plan to convince him to sell the company should be executed gradually after my wedding, when I'll have more influence over his family decisions. I kept digging and found a planner where Bea had written down meetings I knew nothing about. Lunch with RJ, April 15th. Document review, April 22nd. Information handoff, May 3. It all snapped into place. While I was funding her wedding with my savings, believing we were finally healing, Bea was secretly meeting with RJ, Richard Jenkins, passing him insider info from my company. I remembered strange phone calls in recent weeks, Bea whispering, hanging up when I walked in, her innocent questions about my retirement. "Dad, don't you think it's time to enjoy life and hand off more responsibilities?" I also remembered arriving early one morning in May and seeing Bea talking to a man in the parking lot. When I asked who he was, she said a potential client. I realize now he was probably one of Richard's people picking up information. The betrayal was systematic, calculated, cold. My own daughter had been spying for our main competitor, selling secrets from the company I'd built brick by brick for 35 years. And there was more. A sticky note on a contract in Bea's handwriting, post-wedding strategy, push EW Ed Walker as unfit due to age. Doctor recommended by RJ available for evaluation. Forced sale in 6 months. The plan was far more elaborate than I imagined. Not only had they conspired to humiliate me publicly and steal business information, they planned to declare me mentally incompetent and force me to sell. Richard wasn't a generous father-in-law paying for his son's wedding. He was a corporate predator using my own daughter as a weapon to destroy me. I sat in my chair, surrounded by evidence, feeling a mixture of pain, rage, and something I hadn't felt in years, a cold, focused determination. Bea thought she'd played her trump card last night, leaving me humiliated and broken. Richard thought he'd won the first battle of a war I didn't even know we were fighting. They had both badly underestimated Edward Walker. I grabbed my phone and called Michael Stevens, my attorney of 15 years. It was 6:30 on a Saturday morning, but this was an emergency. "Michael," I said when his sleepy voice answered, "I need to see you today. We've got a situation that needs immediate action." As I waited, I looked out at the rising Texas sun, and for the first time since the night before, I smiled. War had just begun, and they had no idea who they were dealing with. Michael showed up at 9 a.m., still in casual clothes, but with his leather briefcase, as always. He'd helped me with the divorce back in 2009. Meticulous man, 48, never lost a big case for me. "Ed, you look like you didn't sleep," he said, taking a seat. "What happened at the wedding?" I told him everything, from the public humiliation to the documents I'd found. He listened in silence, taking notes, frowning as I laid out the evidence. "This is serious," he said, studying the draft letter. "B's committed a clear breach of business confidentiality. If Richard used this for competitive advantage, we're talking industrial espionage." While Michael lined up the legal issues, memories clicked into place. 3 weeks before the wedding, Jack Myers, director of a rival builder in Houston, had called to say Richard tried to steal a major client by offering prices suspiciously tailored to our margins. "Ed," Jack said, "it's weird how Jenkins knows exactly what you charge per square foot on residential. That isn't public." I'd brushed it off as rumor then. Now I knew Richard was using the numbers B fed him to undercut us. 2 weeks earlier, I'd overheard B whispering, "I have the numbers on the Alton project. Yes, just like you asked. My father has no clue." When I asked who she was talking to, she said it was a friend with personal problems. I believed her. Foolish. Another time, late April, I saw B handing a manila folder to an older man in an expensive suit in our lot. When I approached, he drove off in a black BMW. "Who is that?" I asked. "Insurance rep," she said, "reviewing our corporate policies." Now I knew better. Michael interrupted my thoughts. "Ed, what authority does Bay have at the company?" I showed him the limited power of attorney I'd signed when she started. It let her sign small contracts, make routine payments, represent the company for basic admin tasks, nothing strategic. "Perfect," Michael said, finally smiling. "You can revoke this unilaterally, and she's exceeded it by sharing confidential info." While he reviewed more documents, I rebuilt the timeline in my head. Back in March, when B asked for help with the wedding, she also started asking unusual questions about my retirement. "Dad," she said while we scanned invoices, "you work too hard at your age. Men your age should enjoy grandkids, not worry about contracts and construction." I'd taken that as concern. It was laying groundwork for the unfit due to age strategy they'd written down. Around that time, B invited me to family lunches where Adrian was always present. He'd drop casual comments about smart business owners who sold at the top. "Mr. Walker," he said once, "my dad says the secret is knowing when to retire. The smartest sell when their companies are at peak value, not when they're too old to manage them. Every piece fit. Richard used his own son and my daughter to condition me toward selling. The plan was devilishly smart. First, plant doubts about my capacity. Second, steal insider info to weaken my competitive position. Third, humiliate me publicly to crush my confidence. Finally, push me to sell cheap." Michael closed his notebook and looked me in the eye. "Ed, I have good news and bad news. Bad news. This is a sophisticated hostile takeover attempt. Good news. You have the tools to hit back. Here's my plan. First, revoke B's power of attorney immediately. Second, change every system password. Third, formally document the confidentiality breach. And fourth," he paused, "seriously consider selling the company, but not to who they expect." That last part shocked me. Sell? Shouldn't we fight to keep it? Michael gave me the face he makes when he's about to win. Sometimes the best defense is a move they never see coming. If they want to play dirty, we play smarter. I looked out over the city I'd watched grow for decades, the place where I'd built my life project by project, and felt a strange calm. B and Richard made one fatal mistake. They completely underestimated a man who'd survived 35 years in the Texas construction market. It was time to show them what it meant to take on Edward Walker. We spent the next 3 hours crafting a plan that would change everything. First, we had to lock down the company before B returned from her honeymoon in Maui, scheduled for 2 weeks. We've got a tight window, Michael said, scanning the bylaws. B gets back June 30th. By then, everything must be airtight. We started with the urgent steps. Michael drafted the immediate revocation of B's limited power of attorney. I signed with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. Then, we called Chris Miller, our IT director, to come in and change every corporate password. Chris arrived in under an hour, alarmed. "Mr. Walker," he said while resetting access, "what happened? This is extreme," I explained, sparing the raw family details. His face went pale. Oh man, B had admin access to almost everything: client database, budgets, project schedules, even our competitive analysis. That confirmed my worst fears. For 2 years, my daughter had access to data any competitor would pay millions to get. While Chris worked, Michael and I combed every contract and legal document we had. What we found reassured me. "Ed, you're in a strong position," Michael said. "The company is 100% in your name. B never owned any equity, only delegated admin duties. You can make any decision without consulting anyone." That afternoon, as Chris finished securing our systems, I got an unexpected call. It was Jack Myers from Houston, the builder who'd warned me weeks ago. "How was the wedding?" he asked casually. "Revealing," I said. "Figured," he replied. "Listen, Richard has been contacting our shared clients, offering impossibly low prices on projects not even out for public bid yet. He was already using our stolen info to attack." "Jack," I said, "one question. Know any contacts interested in acquisitions?" Silence for a second. "Actually, yes. A private equity group out of Denver asked me about strong Texas builders 2 months ago." Perfect. The pieces were falling into place. "Can you connect me?" "Sure. They're called Summit Ridge Capital. The director is Frank Sullivan. Serious guy, real money." I filled Michael in. His eyes lit up. "This is perfect. If Richard thinks he can force a cheap sale, we'll show him how wrong he is." Sunday afternoon, Michael and I finalized our counterattack. "Simple," he said over coffee on my patio. "We jump ahead of their timeline. You sell voluntarily to your buyer at your price on your schedule." It was brilliant. Richard and B expected me to defend and cling to control while they eroded my position. They would never expect me to sell before they could execute. "But there's the personal side," Michael added. "B loses her job and any expectation of inheriting the company. Are you ready for that?" I thought for a while. I remembered the little girl who once ran into my arms, the angry teen who blamed me for the divorce, the young professional who'd come to work with me. And I remembered her smiling face, calling me useless in front of 180 people, her calculated betrayal, her plan to declare me mentally incompetent. "Michael," I said, "my daughter died to me at that wedding. The person who did those things is not the girl I raised. I owe her nothing." Monday, June 17th, Frank Sullivan from Summit Ridge called me himself. Jack's referral worked fast. "Mr. Walker," he said in a friendly professional tone, "your reputation is excellent. We've followed Walker Construction for years. If you're truly interested in selling, we'd like to meet this week." "Mr. Sullivan," I said, "I'm very interested, but I need absolute discretion and speed. Can we close in under a week? For a company your size and our liquidity, yes. Can we meet tomorrow in Austin?" "Perfect." That night, while prepping financials for the buyers, I got a message from Maui. It was a beach photo of B and Adrian, smiling at paradise. "Dad, thank you for everything. When we get back, we'll talk about the company's future. We love you." I deleted it without replying. In less than 48 hours, there would be no company future to discuss. Tuesday, June 18th, I was up at 5, energized. Today could change everything. Frank arrived with 2 colleagues, Ellen Rogers, CFO, and Andrew Ward, their acquisitions lead. We met at Michael's office at 10 a.m. Mr. Walker, Frank began after reviewing our financials, Walker Construction is exactly what we look for. Solid track record, stable clients, profitable active projects. We value it between $2.6 and $2.9 million, Ellen added. We've reviewed current contracts. Maple Ridge shows a 23% margin, and the City of Maynard contract provides steady revenue. Very positive indicators. Andrew asked the question I expected. Why sell a healthy company, Mr. Walker? A man with your experience doesn't usually walk away without a strong reason. I chose partial truth. I'm 62. I've worked 35 years building this. I want to enjoy retirement while I'm healthy. Also, I've detected hostile moves from competitors. I'd rather act from strength. Frank nodded. Understood. Our proposal, $2.8 million for 100%. Keep all current employees, and if you want, you retain a 5% advisory interest. It was an excellent offer. Michael flashed a tiny nod. Gentlemen, I said, very generous. I have two conditions. First, close before June 30th. Second, absolute confidentiality until I choose to announce. Ellen conferred with her team. We can complete legal docs in 48 hours. Our lawyers can work urgent. We'll sign NDAs now. Perfect. Things were better than I hoped. That afternoon, while their lawyers drafted the sale documents, I tackled the most personal part of my plan. I drove to the Travis County Clerk's office. The condo I'd promised Bea as a wedding gift was recorded under my name in April 2024, when I bought it for $420,000 on Congress Avenue, planning to transfer it after the wedding. Mr. Walker, the clerk said after checking the file, the unit is clear of liens. If you wish to keep it, no action needed. I signed a formal statement noting my intent to keep ownership, voiding any verbal promise. Then I went to the bank where I'd made all the wedding transfers. I asked to meet with the branch manager, Joseph Carrington, a man I'd worked with for 15 years. Joseph, I said, I need official documentation for the transfers I made to my daughter between March and May 2024. It totals $85,000. I want them formally recorded as family loans, not gifts. He frowned. Ed, those transfers were labeled family support. Is there a problem? Let's say the circumstances changed. I need retroactive legal protection. Within an hour, I had full bank records, each transfer, exact dates, and a new document reclassifying the $85,000 as a family loan at 3% interest. Wednesday, June 19th, was intense. Both teams of attorneys worked from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., finalizing the sale. Michael checked every clause, as always. Ed, he said during a break, they're exceptionally professional. Final price is $2.8 million. You keep a 5% advisory interest worth about $35,000 a year, and all employees stay. One worry remained. What about Bea when she gets back from her honeymoon? Technically, her employment moves to the new owners. They'll decide whether to keep or let her go. But with her access revoked, her influence will be zero. That afternoon, Paula called. Ed, she said softly, I've been thinking about what happened at the wedding. I know Bea was awful to you, but shouldn't we talk to her when she gets back? We will, I said calmly. I promise we'll have a very clear talk. Irony. Just as Paula acknowledged the father I'd tried to be, I was making decisions that would change our daughter's life forever. Thursday, June 20th, at 4 p.m., I signed the most important sale of my life. With a Mont Blanc pen I'd bought to celebrate my first big contract in 1995, I transferred 95% of Walker Construction to Summit Ridge Capital for $266 million. Frank shook my hand, genuinely warm. Mr. Walker, it's a pleasure. Your company is in good hands. Ellen added, We'll brief employees tomorrow. Jobs are secure. I left Michael's office with a certified check for $2.6 million and the satisfaction of pulling off the smartest move of my career. Bea and Adrian would come home from Maui in 10 days, expecting the company they planned to pry out of me over time. Instead, they would find out that their useless father was a lot smarter than they thought. That night I toasted alone on my patio with a glass of Dom Perignon, the same champagne they served at the wedding I paid for. This time, I had a real reason to celebrate. Friday, June 21st, I arrived early at what was no longer my office, but I wanted to be there when Frank announced the ownership change to all 12 employees. Some had been with me since the beginning. Kathy Lewis, my secretary since 2015, watched me with curious eyes. "Good morning," Frank began, friendly but professional. "I'm Frank Sullivan, Summit Ridge Capital. As of today, we're the new owners of Walker Construction." Silence, surprise, worry, confusion on every face. Ellen stepped in. "We want to reassure you, no jobs are at risk. We bought this company because we value your talent, your contracts, salaries, benefits, unchanged." Chris Miller raised his hand shyly. "Will Mr. Walker still be with us?" Frank looked my way. I answered, "I'll be stepping back gradually. I'll keep a small advisory stake, but daily management is theirs." After the meeting, several employees came up one by one. Kathy was first. "Mr. Walker, this is so sudden. Are you okay? And what about Bea when she returns?" "Everything's fine, Kathy. As for Bea, the new owners will evaluate when she's back." Andrew stayed that morning to learn operations. We reviewed projects. Maple Ridge was 60% complete, the City of Maynard contract was on schedule, and we had 3 bids pending that could add significant revenue. "Mr. Walker," Andrew said, flipping through files, "your organization is impeccable. This will make the transition easy." That afternoon, the call I expected came. "Richard." "Ed," he said, all smooth politeness, "I hope you've had time to reflect on the wedding. We should have a serious talk about the future." "Of course, Richard. What do you have in mind?" "Bea was a bit harsh last Saturday. Emotions run high at weddings. But I think it's time you seriously consider retirement." There it was, the first official move. "Go on," I said. "You could benefit from selling while the company still holds value. Because of family ties, I'd make a generous offer, $1.8 million for 100% of Walker Construction." I smiled. I had just sold for $266 million, and he offered $860,000 less. "Interesting," I said. "When do you want an answer?" "No rush. When Bea and Adrian return, we can sit down. Your daughter can help you see the advantages." "Perfect. We'll talk when they're back." I hung up and called Michael. "Ed," he said, "exactly as we thought. He planned a lowball offer after softening you up emotionally. The difference between his offer and true market price is $860,000, the price of their scheme." I spent the weekend getting my personal affairs in order. I met with my accountant, Robert Daniels, to plan the $296 million that had landed in my account. "Ed," he advised, "diversify. Conservative funds, some rental property, maybe municipal bonds. You'll be set for life." I also saw my doctor for a thorough checkup, documentation of perfect mental and physical health, in case Richard later claimed I wasn't competent to sell. Monday, June 24th, Frank updated me. "Everything's running smoothly," he said. "Employees are adjusting. Contracts look great. One thing, over the weekend, someone tried to access our systems remotely using disabled credentials. Chris blocked the attempts." That could only mean one thing. Bea tried to log in from Maui to send Richard updates. "Frank, keep security on high alert. There may be more attempts." Wednesday, June 26th, another message from Maui, this time from Bea alone. "Dad, I tried to check some projects, but I can't access the system. Tech issue? I need to send Maple Ridge details to a potential client." I didn't reply, but the message confirmed it. Even on her honeymoon, Bea was still acting like a corporate spy. Thursday, June 27th, 3 days before they returned, I made a final decision about the condo I'd bought as a wedding gift. I visited the place on Congress Avenue for the first time since closing. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, with views over Lady Bird Lake. I'd furnished it gradually, planning to surprise her. I called a top real estate agent for a current market estimate. "Mr. Walker," she said, "units like this go for $380,000 to $450,000. Yours could easily fetch $430,000. "I'm not selling," I told her, "just needed to know the value." That night, I did the math on everything B had thrown away. A job at a thriving company, any expectation of a $296 million inheritance, a condo worth $430,000 in total. Her public humiliation on June 15th cost roughly $3.1 million in lost opportunities. Friday, June 28th, 2 days before they returned, I sent one last message to my daughter. "B, I hope the honeymoon was wonderful. We have a lot to talk about when you're back. Love, Dad." This time she replied immediately, "Dad, I'm so happy to read that. Adrian and I can't wait to talk about our future plans. We love you." I smiled. We would definitely talk about plans, just not the ones she expected. Sunday, June 30th, I woke at 6, knowing it'd be one of the biggest days of my life. Their flight landed in Dallas at 2:30 p.m., and by my estimate, they'd be in the Austin office around 4 to catch up. I arrived early to prepare for the most important meeting my daughter and I would ever have. Frank had given me the run of the place whenever I needed it, considering my 5% advisory interest. "This company wouldn't be what it is without you," he told me. "You're always welcome." I laid out the documents I'd show B. The June 20th sale contract, the evidence of her betrayal, the bank records of the $85,000 reclassified as a loan, and the condo paperwork showing it's still in my name. At 3:45, Kathy told me she saw B's taxi pull in. My heart sped up, but I held the calm I'd been practicing for 15 days. I heard her voice in the hall, laughing, greeting employees. "Good afternoon, everyone," she called. "We're back from our honeymoon. I hope things ran smoothly without me." Kathy answered in a tone B probably missed. "Hi, B. Your dad's waiting in his office." Footsteps quickened down the hall. 3 soft knocks. "Dad, it's me," she said brightly. "Come in, honey." B walked in glowing, sun-kissed from Maui in a white summer dress. She hugged me hard. The first real hug in years. "Dad, I missed you so much. Maui was incredible, but I'm ready to get back to work." "Sit down, B. We have a lot to cover." She took the chair opposite my desk, where we'd reviewed so many contracts together, eyes shining as she started describing the trip. "The island was a dream, Dad. Adrian and I talked so much about the future, family, careers." "Perfect," I said gently. "Let's talk about careers first." I slid over the sale contract dated June 20th. "Please read this carefully." She skimmed it. Curiosity turned to confusion, then alarm, then pure horror. "What is this?" she whispered, shaking. "It's the sale of 95% of Walker Construction to Summit Ridge Capital for $296 million signed 10 days ago." The color drained from her face. The paper trembled in her hands. No, this has to be a joke. Tell me this is a sick joke." "It's real, B. The company is no longer mine. Technically, you don't work for me anymore." She shot to her feet, pacing like a caged animal. "Impossible. You can't sell without asking me. I work here. This company was going to be my inheritance." "Oh, your inheritance?" I said, ice calm. "Interesting choice of words." I slid over the second document, the draft letter in her handwriting. "Explain this." Her eyes locked on her own script. Panic washed over her face. She knew she'd been caught. "Dad, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like. Here you lay out a plan to have me declared mentally unfit and force a sale. Here you document confidential info you fed Richard for months." She collapsed into the chair, covering her face. "Dad, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, steady. "For 2 years you worked for me while secretly betraying me. For months you planned to take my company. And on June 15th, after I paid $85,000 for your wedding from my savings, you called me useless in front of 180 people. "I didn't know you paid for the wedding," she cried, Richard told me he covered it. Of course you didn't know, I said coolly, because you were too busy spying to notice what your own father was doing for you. I put the bank records on the table. These are the transfers I made to your account, $85,000 between March and May, now legally reclassified as a family loan at 3% interest. A loan? You said it was a gift. That was before you humiliated me and I found out about your betrayal. Now it's a loan. You'll pay it back with interest. Bea started to cry, not out of sadness now, but from raw desperation as she realized what she'd lost. Dad, I swear Richard manipulated me. He said it was best for everyone. He told me you were too old to run the company. Bea, I said quietly, I'm 62 and I just pulled off the smartest business move of my life. I sold the company for $860,000 more than Richard was ready to pay. Her eyes flew open. Richard made you an offer. $1.8 million I sold for $2.6 million. The $860,000 gap is exactly what you two tried to steal from me. Right then, as if summoned by our words, Adrian appeared at the door. He came in smiling, but froze when he saw Bea's state. What's going on? He asked, looking between her and me. Your wife just found out the consequences of betraying her father, I said calmly. I laid it all out for him while Bea sobbed. I watched understanding and horror settle into his face. Mr. Walker, he murmured, I didn't know. My dad told me he paid for the wedding. He said you agreed. Your father's a liar and a manipulator, Adrian, and your wife was his willing partner. Bea lifted her head, mascara streaked, voice small. Do I still have a job? I don't have the authority to hire or fire, and the condo I promised? It stays in my name, permanently. The full reality hit her. In just 15 days she had lost her job, her expected inheritance, her condo, and her father's trust. Dad, she whispered, voice breaking, is there any way to fix this? I studied her for a long moment, the little girl who once ran to me, and the adult who had cut me to the bone. Beatrice, I said at last, some actions have irreversible consequences. You chose your path on June 15th. The following days were a strange mix of personal calm and family chaos. Adrian practically carried Bea out that Sunday. She kept repeating, I've lost everything, sobbing. Monday, July 1st, Frank called early. Ed, delicate situation. Bea stormed in, demanding to see the new boss to clear up her job status. Ellen's with her now. How's Ellen handling it? Professionally and firm. She told Bea her employment technically transferred with the sale, but sensitive access stays blocked while we evaluate. That afternoon, Ellen updated me. Ed, I'll be honest, Bea came in extremely emotional, begging for another chance, then demanding rights she doesn't have. When I mentioned evidence of confidential leaks, she got defensive. Tuesday, July 2nd, the call I'd been waiting for. Richard, this time rattled. Ed, we need to talk urgently. I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Richard, only consequences. Listen, it got out of hand. We can fix it. I'm willing to improve my offer for your company. What offer? The $1.8 million we discussed. I can go to $2.2 million if you sell now. I laughed honestly for the first time in weeks. Richard, you don't understand. I already sold 12 days ago. Silence. What? What did you just say? I sold Walker Construction on June 20th for $2.6 million to a Denver group. Your offer is late. That's impossible. You can't sell without consulting Bea. Bea never owned anything, Richard. She was an employee. Employees don't decide company sales. I heard his breathing quicken, then he hung up. Wednesday, July 3rd, Paula came by. She looked tired and worried. Ed, I need to understand. Bea told me you sold the company and left her without a job or inheritance. I sat her on the patio where we'd had so many talks long ago. Did she tell you why? She said there was a misunderstanding at the wedding. I don't see how a rash comment justifies ruining her life. I showed Paula everything, the draft letter, the notes, the records of data she'd passed to Richard. She read in silence for 20 minutes. I watched her face move from disbelief to horror to deep sadness. "Oh my God," she whispered, "our daughter actually did this." "For months, Paula, not an impulse, a systematic conspiracy." "But she's our little girl," Paula said, broken. "There has to be a way to fix this." "Our little girl is 28. Adults make choices. Choices have consequences." She sat quietly for a long time. "Is there any chance of reconciliation?" "That depends entirely on B, on whether she can take full responsibility without blaming anyone else." Thursday, July 4th, I had an unexpected visitor. Adrian showed up alone around noon. "Mr. Walker, I don't have the right to ask you for anything, but I need to talk." I let him in. "These days have been hell," he said. "B can't eat, can't sleep. I know she did terrible things, but I'm watching her fall apart." "And what do you expect me to do, Adrian?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "I just know the woman I married isn't the person who plotted against you. I think my father manipulated her more than any of us realized." "Has your father contacted you since he learned about the sale?" Adrian nodded, bitter. "He's furious. He blames me for not managing things better. He called B useless for failing to execute a simple plan." That surprised me. Richard's true colors, in his own home. "Adrian, do you understand your father tried to steal $860,000 from me?" "I do, and I'm ashamed I was part of that family long enough to let it happen." I saw something familiar in his eyes, the determination I felt when I chose to fight back. "What will you do?" "I'm leaving my father's firm. I'll find work at another real estate law practice away from his shadow." A brave decision for a 30-year-old raised under a powerful father. Friday, July 5th, exactly 3 weeks after the wedding, Michael called. "Ed, interesting news. Richard's been digging for legal ways to undo the sale. He's also hiring a private investigator to question your mental capacity." So their original plan did include declaring me incompetent. "Michael, your recommendation? Document everything. If he keeps pushing, we'll have grounds for defamation and harassment." That night, eating alone on the patio as I had so many times recently, I took stock. Bay had lost her job, any expectation of inheritance, and my trust. Adrian was rethinking his entire family loyalty. Richard had missed out on nearly $1 million and might face legal trouble. I had $266 million in the bank, an advisory stake paying me yearly income, and, for the first time in years, real peace. Saturday, July 6th, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I unplugged. I drove down to Port Aransas, walked the beach, grabbed lunch facing the Gulf, and for one whole day, I didn't think about betrayal, conspiracies, or revenge. I just enjoyed being Ed Walker, 62, the man who'd won the most important war of his life. 3 months later, life had a new rhythm. It was September 2024, and for the first time I could remember, mornings didn't start with job site calls or contractor meetings. I'd moved to a smaller, elegant apartment in downtown Austin, near the Capitol. I sold the old family house in Cedar Park. Too many memories. Robert Daniels invested the $266 million wisely, a diversified portfolio that brought in about $8,000 a month, plus $35,000 a year from my advisory stake. At 62, I had the kind of financial stability most people dream of, but money didn't fill the hole left by losing my daughter. On September 15th, I received a handwritten letter I didn't expect. It was from B, on the letterhead of a small accounting office where she'd found work after Summit Ridge chose not to renew her contract. "Dear Dad," it began in less certain handwriting than I remembered. "It's been 3 months since we last saw each other. Not a day goes by that I don't think about the terrible decisions I made and the hurt I caused you. I kept reading over coffee on my balcony overlooking the Capitol Dome. She wrote about how Richard's manipulation started subtly, comments about my age, hints that I deserved rest, how he framed leaking information as helping the family and protecting my future. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she wrote near the end. I know some actions are unforgivable. I just want you to know the woman who humiliated you at my wedding is not the real me. That was a corrupted version of me who lost her way. She ended with a line that hit me hard. I've lost everything material I hope to inherit, but I hope I haven't lost the chance to get my father back someday. I love you. If you can find any space in your heart for the daughter I truly am, I'll be here. I folded the letter and placed it in my desk with other important papers. I wasn't ready to reply, but I didn't throw it away. That week, Adrian called with family updates. Mr. Walker, I'm fully independent now. I got a position at Mason & Associates here in Austin in real estate law. I'm glad to hear it, Adrian. How did Richard take it? As expected. He disowned me, called me ungrateful. But for the first time in my life, I sleep well, knowing my work is honest. He also told me he and Bea had started marriage counseling to rebuild on stronger ground. I'm not asking you to forgive her, he said, but I'm seeing real change. She stopped blaming my father. She owns what she did. At the end of September, I finally took a vacation I'd postponed for decades. I booked a 3-week trip through the Pacific Northwest, Oregon coast up to Washington. I wanted to see landscapes I'd never had time to enjoy. On those trails, especially along the cliffs near Cannon Beach, I had time to process it all. The betrayal, the revenge, the consequences, the isolation. One night over dinner with an older couple who struck up a conversation, the man said something that stuck. Son, at 78, I've learned that wounded pride can turn into a prison if you're not careful. Justice is good. Bitterness will kill you. His words echoed all the way back to Texas. When I got home, 2 messages were waiting. One from Frank with great news. We've landed 2 major contracts and may expand the team. Your advisory input has been invaluable. The other surprised me more. An invitation from the Austin Chamber of Commerce to recognize my 35 years of contribution to local development. The ceremony would be in December. That night, making dinner in my new kitchen, I reflected on the changes. I'd gone from a stressed, betrayed business owner to a financially free man with time to figure out who I was beyond construction. But Bea's absence was a steady ache. On October 10th, my 63rd birthday, I did something I hadn't done in years: celebrate. I invited Michael, Robert, and a few veteran employees to one of Austin's best restaurants. To Ed, Michael toasted with a glass of good red. A man who proved that intelligence and dignity beat manipulation. Later, Kathy slipped over. Mr. Walker, I hope I'm not overstepping. Bea asks about you a lot. I know things ended terribly, but I think she truly regrets it. Kathy, I appreciate you caring. Some wounds take a long time. I understand. I just wanted you to know that, from what I see, she's not the same person she was. That night back at my apartment, I reread Bea's letter. For the first time since June, I let myself consider that maybe one day we could build something. Not full forgiveness, not forgetfulness, but some kind of new, careful relationship between a father and a daughter who'd learned brutal lessons about trust, loyalty, and consequences. I looked out at the Austin lights and, for the first time in months, felt that the next chapter didn't have to be defined only by justice. Maybe it could include a measured kind of mercy. March 2025, 9 months since that June Sunday that changed my family forever. Spring arrived early in Austin, and I was a completely different version of Ed Walker. My days were unhurried. I ate breakfast, reading the Wall Street Journal on my balcony, visited museums I'd never made time for, and walked Zilker Park in the afternoons, feeding the ducks. At 63, I'd rediscovered the joy of a life without constant emergencies. The chamber ceremony in December had been deeply satisfying. Standing on that stage, applauded for a career built honestly, knowing I'd defeated people who tried to destroy me. Frank met with me monthly for strategic advice. Under Summit Ridge, Walker Construction had grown 15% year over year. Your foundation was so solid, he told me, that scaling has been easy. We're considering a San Antonio branch. Passive income let me live comfortably. I'd invested in 3 downtown rentals, mixed in bonds, and kept an emergency fund that meant no worries for the rest of my life. But one question kept poking at me. Had I taken my revenge too far? The answer came unexpectedly one Thursday at the farmer's market at Muller, where I bumped into Paula. She smiled, genuinely the way she used to. "You look good, Ed. Relaxed." "Thanks, Paula. How are things?" "Complicated, but hopeful." She told me B had finished a post-grad certificate in financial administration while working at the accounting office. Adrian was stable at his new firm. They'd bought a small condo in Clarksville with their own savings. "Ed, I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything, but would you ever consider, not full forgiveness, but letting B show you she's changed?" "What kind of change?" "She's been in therapy for 6 months, not to excuse herself, but to understand why she was so easily manipulated. She volunteers on weekends at a senior home." That surprised me. B had never shown interest in that before. "And she's been making the loan payments every month. She's never missed or asked you to lower the interest." That part was true. Every month, $200 hit my account right on time. "Just think about it," Paula said gently. "I'm not talking about being a family like before. That's gone. I'm talking about a respectful relationship, maybe." Her words stayed with me. For the first time in months, I wondered if total silence was the right long-term answer. The final push came 2 weeks later in the most ordinary way. I was having dinner alone at a quiet place off West 6th when a young couple walked in. It was B and Adrian. She looked different, calmer, more grounded, without that forced smile from our last months working together. They didn't see me. I watched discreetly as they ordered a simple dinner, talking quietly. Not tense, just peaceful. When the check came, I saw something that hit me hard. B checked every line, calculated the tip carefully, and paid with small bills she counted precisely. Not the careless spending of someone living off other people. The careful habit of someone who'd learned the real value of money. I walked over before they left. "Good evening," I said simply. B looked up, surprise, nerves, and something like cautious hope washing over her face. "Dad," she said, standing. "I didn't know." "What a coincidence," I said. "Can we talk for a minute?" I aimed the question mostly at her. Adrian excused himself, sensing we needed privacy. "Sit, B." She sat, posture tight, bracing for the worst. "I've been thinking about your letter," I began, "and some things your mother told me." "Dad, Let me finish," I said gently. "What you did was unforgivable. You broke my trust, plotted to steal my company, and humiliated me publicly." Her eyes filled, but she stayed composed. "But," I continued, "I've also seen you making every loan payment on time. I've heard about your volunteer work and your effort to rebuild from zero." "Dad, I think about what I did every day. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope that someday I can prove I'm better than I was with you." Her voice was different. No arrogance, no entitlement. She sounded like someone who had faced real consequences and learned. "B, I can't promise things will ever be like before. That trust is broken, but maybe we can build something small, a careful version of a relationship." Her eyes lit with cautious hope. "What kind?" "Occasional visits, civil conversations, you consistently showing me you've truly changed. No talk of inheritance, no special privileges, just basic mutual respect." "That would be more than I deserve," she said, honest and soft. When Adrian came back, I told him the same. "Thank you," he said. "She's learned lessons that will stay with her forever." That night, walking back through the downtown streets, I thought about my choice. I had won the war completely. Richard lost a multi-million opportunity in his credibility. Bay lost her privileges and learned the true cost of her decisions. I kept my dignity, multiplied my net worth, and proved that underestimating me was expensive. But I also learned something important. The perfect revenge includes knowing when to stop. Not full forgiveness, not forgetting. Just balance between justice and humanity, between defending my dignity and not becoming a man trapped by bitterness. At 63, I'd built a new life on my own terms, free of traitors and manipulation, but open to the possibility that people can change when they face real consequences. Bay would get the chance to prove her transformation. I would keep my dignity and my freedom. And together, maybe we'd write a different chapter in a story I once thought ended for good on that June Sunday. Some victories, I thought, looking up at the quiet Austin sky, aren't just about what you destroy. They're also about what you choose to rebuild afterward. If you like this story, please like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next one, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.